You know that I'ma keep it cool. With you I feel like breaking rules. On the edge, looking out with no parachute. You know I'm dreaming about us two, playing around without a clue. On the edge, leaning out. With us it's all or nothing.
It's so easy gaining weight once you're married.
Here are 10 things I wish I'd known before marriage.
With us it's all or nothing. Ooh, but guess I need
For those of you who don't know us, this is my wife Christine and my name is Binni, and we've been married for 11 years despite our misleading baby faces, which might make you think otherwise. We have we've got 3 kids, and we have had an unofficial, unspoken rule that in each country that we live in, we have a kid. Something went wrong this time around because we're having another one in the same country as a 3rd kid, so that's kind of anticlimactic. In the process of being married and having kids and moving countries and whatnot, we've learned a lot of things about marriage and each other and things that maybe we wish we'd known before we got married.
Our channel is all about reducing the chaos of family life. So after this video, you should head over to our channel and see a lot of other videos about that topic. But if you want to take this relationship that we have going on here a little bit further, then you should hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. Then you get notifications every time we release a new video. That's commitment.
I love it! That said, we're gonna jump into the 10 points.
We prepared 5 points each, and we haven't showed each other our points, so it'll be interesting to see if we have 5 of the same ones. I don't think so.
This is 5 to 10 things that we wish we'd known before we got married, depending on how many of the same points we actually have.
Actually, I prepared one extra in case, so. You know.
That is so, you are so prepared.
So the first thing that I wish I'd known before getting married is that he's not supposed to be your best friend. I mean, great if he is. I think sometimes you do end up marrying your best friend and you just love all the same things. But like when we got married, we did not have the same music taste at all. At all, and we still really don't. We found a few things we both like. But you know, there are just some things that he's really bad at. Like, like watching a chick flick. I can name like 25 people off the top of my head just right now that I'd rather watch a chick flick with than you.
You probably would want to watch a chick flick with me, but you know that the hassle of convincing me to sit down and watch a chick flick is just not worth it. So
And
pay off.
if I actually do convince you, then your comments through the whole thing and you're like,
Okay.
size. It's just not worth it. I would rather watch with other people. So I mean, he's just not supposed to necessarily be your best friend, and that's okay. You still need your other friends around.
Are you moving into like, you know, but then you grow together and find stuff that you, because
That's not where I was going with this. No, I was just like, it's okay that he's not your best friend.
Because there are a lot of things that I think we've learned to appreciate together, like board games
Yes.
and going out for runs.
Yeah.
During specific periods and only for, you know, maybe a few weeks at a time, and then we stop doing that.
But we have enjoyed it during those brief periods. You will learn to do things together, you learn to appreciate certain things, but it's okay if you don't feel like he's your best friend. Your turn. What's yours?
The first thing on my list of what I wish I'd known before marriage is that we're gonna have different flavors of the same argument or disagreement over and over and over and over again.
That's a really good way of saying it. I've never like thought about it in that way.
And
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well,
but
that is good, because I'd be very disappointed if we'd had that same argument over and over again and you had no idea.
Fair enough.
But I remember when I was doing my undergraduate studies, one of my friends was kind of asking me about marriage and kind of like my experience of it. We got married.
In your undergrad, your experience was like, what, a year?
Yeah.
You were, just for, so you know you were 23, right? When we got married? Weren't you? I don't remember.
Yep. Turning 23, almost
Yeah.
23. I remember very distinctly telling her that it's like, this takes work. You know, you have to work and keep working at it. And then, you know, that's how you keep your marriage strong and the relationship happy. I had no idea. But it turns out I was right. I just didn't know what exactly that looked like. And now I have a much better idea of what that looks like. It is basically us having our, you know, underlying experiences and backgrounds and ways of viewing the world and bringing that to, you know, the relationship that we have. And when we disagree, those disagreements and where we're coming from are painted by those, you know, that background, that experience that you bring to the table. And so I think it's just really important to acknowledge that. It took us a while to kind of recognize that there was a pattern going there. and to address that. And I think once you kind of dig down to that level and address some of the underlying issues rather than always just trying to like address the symptoms of you know your background and your experiences and what have you, that's when you start getting somewhere.
It's really key to realize that those are the same arguments and just like recognize it when it happens. Like, oh, hey, remember we've talked about this? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then it'll go a lot faster. Getting over it.
Yeah. It's too much sugar.
Okay, stop eating it then. Alright, so my second thing is he's not gonna be as perfect as he seems. So, I'm sorry.
Disappointing.
I knew you weren't perfect, but it was really hard for me to put a point on like, oh, this here is not perfect about him because he was just so dreamy, you know? And I still love him.
Makes me sound like some con artist.
No, not at all. I think it's just like we're all on our best behavior while we're like courting each other and like dating. That perfect behavior is not gonna last, and it's not supposed to, because wouldn't it really be boring if he was just perfect all the time? You would feel crap about yourself because you're not perfect. There's beauty in that growth. There's beauty in that imperfection where you can like figure out something together, figure out like a solution together or a way forward together.
Get through a difficult time or difficult disagreement together.
Exactly.
No, I think you have retained your perfection better than I have.
Whatever. I think I've just grown into more perfect than I was.
Yeah, it's been all downhill for me, but for you, it's been like, you know, you're on the rise.
I'm gonna have some chips.
You too.
What? That's why I can eat.
Number 2 is that before marriage, I did not appreciate the value of good sleep. Having my own bed, not sharing it constantly with somebody else, and not to mention when you actually end up having kids, if that's in your future plans. I mean, sleep just is hard to come by.
It's actually funny you said this, because I remember when we got married, I was like, wow, we sleep a lot. I was like, wow, we get like almost 8 hours every night. Like I was used to getting like 4 or 5 hours because of school and other social activities. So I remember like, wow, marriage really gets you to sleep enough. It's nice.
So that is point 4B.
Yeah, for Binni.
Yours is
Oh.
4B. Mine was point 4A.
I see.
Pretty shrewd of you to like recognize that connection.
Were you tired when you thought of this point?
I was very tired. My point being that sleep is one of those 3 pillars, along with, you know, good regular exercise and a healthy diet, that helps you feel good, that helps you have, you know, high energy levels and just a sense of well-being throughout your day. And it's difficult to come by when, you know, you're sharing a bed, when you have kids, when you've got the responsibilities of an adult. I don't think I appreciated that enough when I got married. And I think after getting married, I don't think I've always done all the things that I could do to make sure that I get the best sleep possible, so that, you know, I'm actually fulfilling my role as a husband and as a father as best as I can.
Like get closer to that perfect.
Get back to the perfect. So here you see the connection. This is where it all fell apart.
Yeah, because we got married and I started sleeping more. I got back. I see it.
We are learning so much.
Exactly. My third thing of what I wish I'd known before marriage is that women talk. So, okay, I knew that women talk, but I think I was just surprised at the first few girl nights that I went to after we got married, or shopping trips, or hangouts with my friends, of how much that my married friends actually talk about their husband. Because it's not like it's your boyfriend anymore that you're trying to decide if you're going to keep around or not. This is your husband. You made the commitment, so you're sticking with it. And I think it's just not fair to overshare about all the things that are bothering you about him because either you brought it to his attention and he's working on it, or thinking about working on it, or you haven't brought it to his attention and he should really be the first one to know about it.
That's a really good point. I don't really know what to say about that.
Well,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Is it good?
Yeah, but it's hard to eat while you're here.
Well, I'm here like...
No, while we're sitting here and talking to these people.
Well, why don't you just keep at it and I'll go into point number 3. Which is that good enough is good enough. And I think I didn't know that before my marriage. I think it's something that me, as the perfectionist that I am constantly trying to come to terms with. when you get married, you have this idea of not just him or her being perfect, but everything else in your life being perfect. That obviously isn't always the case, but it also doesn't mean that, you're going to be arguing or whatever all the time. That's not my point here. My point is that whether it has to do with, DIY projects around the house, the kids' extracurricular activities, your exercise schedule, or what have you, sometimes, the idea that you had of what your marriage is actually going to look like, and a lot of the time, actually, it's not going to look anything like that. And I think that's fine. I think you come to terms with the fact that life is just full of imperfections, and you have certain aspirations and dreams that you should obviously go for and try to create the reality that you want for yourself. But in a lot of cases, you're going to be sabotaging for yourself if you're so hooked on the idea of everything being perfect that, you end up basically being nowhere close to where you want to be. And for me, the thing that I've learned is that sometimes good enough is just good enough.
That was one of my points too!
I'm so glad that you're excited about it, because that basically means that at this point in the video, they're realizing that they're not going to get their 10 points.
No, because I prepared an extra one, remember? So there you go. So we still got 10.
Oh.
No, so on this here, I was thinking that image that you have of what married life is gonna be like, that is flawed. Like, that's not how it's gonna be. Yes, we still have romantic moments. No, seriously. But like, my image is like, oh, like marriage is gonna be so romantic. We're gonna do all these things together.
We're just gonna sit
perfect.
like, red tablecloth draped over, the kids are in bed and hygge times and everything's cozy and lovely all the time. Nope.
No, I mean, there is gonna be an everyday life going, especially when the kids come, but also before. Like, you just go into, not a rut, but you just like end up in an everyday life, and that's okay, because that's where the in love feeling turns into like actual love. And like, that everyday life is a lot more real than that image that you have. So I'd rather have what's real, because that's imperfect, and that's somewhere we're growing, and that's something where I can actually be myself.
Like with the trees that, that blow in the winds regularly, they grow the strongest roots, but the trees that don't ever see or feel see.
Trees don't have eyes, good if.
There's a lot of things wrong with that analogy of trees seeing the wind, but you get my point. They, like...
that was very profound, thanks. Yeah.
That is real life though, isn't it? I mean, that's your point.
Yes. So, real is better than the perfect image. Number 4?
Is it? Or was that? Oh yeah, I guess
yeah,
that was
because I was just adding to yours.
Yeah, sorry. We're struggling getting through this. I mean, this is not as planned out as most of our other videos, if you can't tell by now.
So my 4th thing that I wish I'd known before marriage is that people like to be loved in different ways. So, one thing, we first met, and like, I remember like, lean forward a little bit. So like, one day I was like, doing this, like, nusse, it's what they call it in Danish. I don't know what it's called. It's just like, kind of like soft touch to his back, and like this like soft touch. He
caressing
hates it.
It is the worst.
He hates it. Like, that is the best feeling. Like, it's like, oh, like I can scratch. I'm allowed to scratch, I found out, but I'm not allowed to just like, I want to say pet, caress, caress him like this. I'm not allowed to do that because he does not like it, and I love it.
I would rather have you like punch me in the shoulder. Thanks.
Love punch.
I love you too.
It's just interesting how the things that I love and that really shows me that he cares are not the same things that he loves and shows him that I care. So you should get to know the person and show them love in the way that they appreciate it. So one thing you actually do really well, sorry, I'm just gonna keep talking.
Yeah, go on.
Is like gifts. That's something that really means a lot to you. Not so much the ones you receive, but the ones you give. So like every Christmas, you go crazy. You're like, oh, what should I get her? What should I get her? And like go around and spend like a whole month trying to figure out what to give me, because it can't just be something on my list. It can't be something that I've mentioned. It has to be something like perfect. Something that I'm not expecting, that's really, really nice and shows me exactly how he feels about me, how much he appreciates everything I do all year. And that's really tough. But I think it's like a way that you show your feelings for me is like through finding that perfect gift.
Do you appreciate that?
I do appreciate that. I don't appreciate so much the...
That was my next question.
Getting crazy up until Christmas, like really wanted to get the perfect thing.
We usually do something on our channel or on our Facebook page to kind of like make the time leading up to Christmas as cozy and relaxed as possible. This is out of pure necessity. Point number 4. Am I on number 4?
Yeah, you're 4.
Item number 4 on the list of what I wish I'd known before marriage is that you need to dream big and set goals. This is something that I think going into marriage, for me, the idea of like going into marriage at this point in time, I was getting my education, I wanted to get a good job, you know, and have kids and have a happy, you know, family life. That was all very clear. But then once we got there, it was like, well, what next? And I think people hit this point at different stages in their lives, but at one point or another, you're gonna find yourself just kind of going through the same thing over and over and over again. You like wake up, you have breakfast, you send the kids off to school, you go to work, you come back, and it's like dinner, maybe you watch a show in the evening, and then you go to sleep, and then, you know, like lather, rinse, repeat, right? And that is just not a very fulfilling life, at least not for me. And I think we had a couple of years like in our mid to late 20s, maybe even a little bit later, and I think it's probably something that repeats itself, where you realize that, you know, you've kind of reached your goals, you're living a good life, but you're not fulfilled because you don't have something to strive towards. And we have at different times in our marriage together sat down and really just taken an inventory of where we are and where we want to be. Not just, you know, setting goals for the next year, which we do every year, but where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? You know, where are we living? What is our financial situation like? What, you know, what are we working at? What are our kids doing? And what are we doing with our kids? Those kind of things. I think it's so important that you develop that image with your spouse of where it is that you want to be going, and then you work towards it.
Yeah, just to highlight the nerds that we actually are, those like 5-year goals, 10-year goals you were talking about, like we usually look at those every year when we make our year goals. So like, okay, so our year goals, are they actually bringing us towards the 5-year goals, 10-year goals that we've set? Yeah, so that's really good to do. We recommend that.
That was my number 4.
Okay, I'm on to my number 5, and I can't remember it, so. Alright, so my 5th thing of things I wish I'd known before marriage is that there are different ways of doing the right thing. So that sounds weird. That's because it was hard for me to put into words like exactly right, but I remember when we first got married, we're both really sensible, smart people, just so you know. And I was very used to being right and doing things right, and you were very used to being right and doing things right, and all of a sudden, we're living together and we're both doing the right things in the right way, but they're not the same. And that started a few arguments in the beginning. And this is something that hasn't really been an issue for me over the last many years. But I remember something that was really big for me in the first few years is like, I'm right on this and you're doing it wrong. And then we would like argue about that. And it could be anything from like, the way you put the toilet paper roll on.
I think we both agreed, right?
Well, I didn't care before, and you were very adamant about it, and I was like, it doesn't matter.
Come to it.
But I've come to realize that it matters to you, and I love you. That's that. It could be like a lot of different things, like, do you iron your clothes right after they come out of the dryer, or do you iron them when you need them? Like, just different things. Like, you might be right because it's worked for you, and he might be right because it's worked for him, but you just have to find your collective right.
And I think that brings us nicely to my last point. Now, I was struggling a bit to come up with the 5th point. I don't think I gave it as much thought as you did. And I think you can also tell from how good your points are and how mediocre mine are. Oh, but as I was struggling to come up with the 5th point, I realized that, you know, I'm gonna show up tonight and, you know, we've got all of this prepared and we've got the camera set up and the lights and everything, and I'll only have 4 points.
Would you feel silly?
I would, and I almost did, and then I realized this is a really good point. You are gonna disappoint each other. And there are gonna be times when you come up short compared to your spouse's expectations. And I think that recognizing that, and maybe this, you know, is summing up a little bit what we've already talked about, but recognizing that helps you to cut each other a little bit of slack. But if you look at it from a slightly different angle, you'll also realize that, you know, in an effort to make a successful relationship, a successful home life for you and your family, your spouse is most likely doing things that you don't recognize to try to accommodate for how you like things to be done, to try to make you feel good, to try to make you feel loved. And a lot of the time, as imperfect as we all are, you might not be recognizing those things that your spouse is doing and acknowledging them and giving them the love and appreciation that they really deserve.
I love that point. I think it's a really good and strong point to end off with.
One good point for me.
No! It's not a good point. But I really like this one because it's true. We are going to disappoint each other. We are not perfect.
Yeah, and at some point you kind of realize like, oh, you've been married like 10 or 11 years and I'm just realizing this about you now. I think looking back, like, yeah, we've been married for a long time, but we're hopefully going to stay married for a much longer time. And I think that's just going to keep being a recurring event where, you know, something pops up and you're like, what? Like, how is this happening after, you know, all these years of marriage? And I think it's just really important to cut each other a little bit of slack.
Yeah, so stay tuned for 10 years from now when we'll make another video like this of the things we wish we'd known before marriage.
Yeah, when we're all famous YouTubers and have 1 million subscribers, and all of you that were here with us at the beginning will join us on a cruise. No.
What? Yeah, that'll be awesome. Let's do this. Okay. Didn't quite do it that way. So those were our 10 points that we wish we'd known before marriage. So if you have anything that you realize and like, I wish I'd known this before marriage, then please share those in the comments below.
And if you have any questions about, you know, what marriage is like that we can share of our wealth of knowledge with you, then also just ask those in the comments. And we usually try to answer every single comment that we get. So yeah, fire away.
Also, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It lets us know that you like this kind of video, and then we will make more of this kind of stuff in the future. And if you look over here, YouTube has a suggestion for a video you might also like, so check that one out now.
See you next week.